medium that continues to grow every single year. And basically anyone can really start a podcast and grow it very quickly if what you're saying resonates with people. So, and those podcast episodes never disappear. I think they just get more and more listens as time goes on. So it's a good medium to play with. So we'll start with lessons. I've got 4. The first one is you have to find the right fit when you're trying to find the right influencer or a media outlet or podcast. Obviously, they're going to be your messenger. So you want something that aligns with your brand and makes sense that they're talking about you. You can also do some research to make sure that whatever channel you're pursuing matches who you're trying to reach, for example. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that. And then something I'd also recommend is just reflecting on how your story, how your brand fits within the current events or sort of the larger narrative that makes you relevant, and then therefore makes someone else more likely to be interested in what you're doing. So whenever we're vetting an influencer, for example, these are the 4 criteria that we're always looking at. If we want to reach out to them or they reach out to us, we're always looking at their target audience. So does it align, again, with who we're looking for? What does their engagement look like? Not necessarily the number of views or the number of followers, although you can consider that. But I think we're, at least nowadays, we're really interested in, are they getting a lot of comments? Do they get a lot of saves? Are they sharing that content? Those are interesting metrics to look at. Niche and content style. Do I like the type of content that they're putting out? Does it make sense for them to talk about me? And then expectations is sort of a logistical one, but are there, am I doing, making any unreasonable expectations that they, won't fulfill? And then vice versa. So is this partnership going to work like on a logistical standpoint? And the nice thing is there are tools that you can use to sort of calculate some of this information on your own. If you Google like engagement rate calculators, you can put in an influencer's account and then get some statistics populated, which is helpful. Or a lot of influencers nowadays will also have a media kit. So they'll curate all this information for you, which is really helpful. So this is an example, I think, of a good fit. The Hungry Pursuit is an Instagram account run by a couple. They travel all around the world and they try different food. They have a really engaged following, and this relationship actually came up very organically. They happened to be traveling in Madrid. They got in touch and wanted to do some of our food tours, and we got them on tour, sort of like the content that they created, and didn't give them too many other guidelines. And what they created, I think, was really great. They joined us in Madrid, and then they joined us in Lisbon as well, which is where this video is from.
Come with us to see why. First, what do you notice about these tiles? As we walk through the old streets of Moraria, our local guide from Devour Tours shares her story of Maria Severa. She was the trailblazer of Fado, a symbol of Portugal. But what's Fado? I will show you in a bit. First, it's time for a snack locals call it pestiscos. Fried squid, croquettes, so good. Lisbon sparked my love for all its again. The Portuguese are so clever. Small, cheap beer glasses keep the brew cold and flowing. Then we make our way into the streets of Alfama. Stunning viewpoints, and you'll see the portraits of Fado singers. This is Alice, and now we're at her house for some ginginha, cherry liquor. How cool. Now we're headed to a renowned Fado house for a 3-course dinner. The salted cotton pork cheeks were exceptional. These are Fados. Wow, the sheer emotion and expression in their voices. What? The staff too. This was an incredible experience. I highly recommend.
Yeah, so that was all Andrew. As you can see, he's really dynamic on camera. He's a really good storyteller. If we could ever get him to come and do a talk, I think that would be worthwhile. But that was all him. And I think the reason that it worked and that we saw good results for a relatively low investment, all we did was host him and his partner on complimentary tours. And then they created this great piece of content for us that has 587 saves, 304 sends, over 22,000 plays, thousands of likes. This screenshot is even a little bit outdated because when you look at the other one, it was like 1,000 or almost 2,000 likes. But it's because it was a good fit. So sometimes things work out great like this, sometimes they don't. But I think if you do the research sort of ahead of time to find that fit, then you can get some really great content. I won't play the other one just because we were short on time, but had equally good results. And then on the PR side, things with influencers and things with PR are similar but different. But with journalists, it's all about finding the right angle. Um, so, how does your product or service fit into a larger narrative? Is this a topic that no one else is talking about, or is there a new development or spin on a familiar topic? Is there a holiday or some event that's going on that makes what you're doing particularly relevant in the news today? I find that journalists really like data and trends. You can share any trends that you're seeing in the industry. I think that they find that really helpful. And then kind of similar to what I was saying earlier about, fit is the outlet and the writer a good fit. So if, we're doing travel and tourism and then someone who covers like stock markets, that doesn't really make any sense unless we had stock and, then we would take like a B2B angle, but I think you get the point. And of course, it would be really easy if we could just pitch stories that were, I did this, walking tour in Rome. We went to the Vatican. We saw it without the crowds. It was awesome. Or we did this food tour. We went to all these great places. It was great. But there are lots of other people that are also doing that too. So trying to find ways to be a little bit creative with our angles and how we get talked about in the press. So for instance, this one from Forbes earlier this year, what to know before you book a trip to Spain. We had the co-founder of Devour Tours quoted in here. So although we weren't specifically talking about our tour, she was sharing some tips about what to know when you visit Spain. And we got a backlink there because she was quoted as a source, which is great. Another fun one, how to plan the perfect girls weekend in Paris. This was someone who did a couple of our food tours and walking tours in addition to some other activities in Paris, and then she created a list. So we are included in one of those lists. And then the how to blast with your crew in London is again a similar one. There are, I think, opportunities where you can sort of stay within the lane of your brand and what you're doing, and it can be pretty clear cut, like this one from Journeywoman, understanding French culture through food, how to find the right food tour in Paris, France. But something interesting she did there, she expanded it a little bit more. So she didn't just talk about her experience. She talked about different criteria that make for a good food tour, which I think adds a lot more value to people who might be looking for a similar experience and maybe looking at some other options. And then this last one was a fun one, and I can't take the credit for this one. We do have a PR agency, which is really helpful. And this one came from one of our team over there where we were noticing the extreme day tripping trend. I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but there's this one guy, he's from New York, and he flies from New York to Rome for a day and then flies back. Yeah, and it was obviously very controversial. Some people liked it, some people hated it. But it was like this trend, and more people were doing it on social media, I think particularly on TikTok. So my teammate had this really great idea of what if we did an extreme day trip from London to Paris. So then we invited some London-based journalists and then took the Eurostar instead of a plane. So it was a little more eco-friendly and then spent the day in Paris doing some tours. And I thought that was a cool idea to put something newsworthy on our experiences that might not otherwise be super newsworthy. So just to get you thinking about different ideas and how you might be able to put your brand as part of a larger conversation. The second lesson, I think this is an important one and probably the most important one I've learned along the way, but with anything with partnerships and relationship building, the relationship and sort of how you work together and treat each other is, I think, really important. So If you're not nice to work with and you're mean and you're demanding and unreasonable, then no one's going to want to work with you. Surprise, surprise. Uh, so I think treating these relationships with influencers and journalists or podcasters kind of like you would a friend or a professional connection. So you have to nurture it. If you see that they have a win, congratulate them. If you see a way that you could help them by either giving them a source, um, or something that you think they might be interested in, then that's kind of a way to just build it naturally so it doesn't feel so transactional, and then you're trustworthy to them as well. And I think also recognizing that everyone has their interests and is trying to achieve their own outcomes and goals. So trying to understand, okay, what does this person want? What do I want? And how can we find some way so that we both have an outcome that is beneficial to both of us? So that's the strategic part. With working with influencers, I feel like expectations is really important. Uh, and I think there's sort of two avenues, at least in the way that I've been doing it. But there's the hosted gifted avenue, which I personally do a lot of. So a lot of the social media work that I do is earned, and that we comp the experience, and then people in exchange create a blog post or a piece of content in return. And I personally really like it. That's, I think, where most of the relationship building comes in, but it's low pressure. If someone doesn't like the experience, that's fine. Like, no money lost, really, no harm done. It could, I think, lead to a more authentic relationship and brand ambassadorship over time too. And I think it's a great way to test an audience's reaction to how this person or this outlet talks about your brand as well. So with Andrew from The Hungry Pursuit, as an example, the first pieces of content he created for us performed great. So then we actually ended up doing a paid partnership with him down the line. And we got to test it before we made that investment, which was nice. A con, though, of a hosted or gifted experience is I don't think you can necessarily, demand a deliverable. I think on the part of the creator or the blogger, it's nice, especially if you like the experience. But ultimately, this is again sort of a low pressure situation. We want to see if this is a good fit for both of us. And I think you also sacrifice some editorial and creative input as well when you're doing these types of partnerships as well. And it might take them longer to deliver any results or deliverables too. But paid collaborations, a different animal. And this is handled by some other folks on my team, but very different because you're putting in an investment, right? You're literally signing a contract in most cases. So you'll know that there is a defined scope, that there's a timeline, you know exactly what you're going to get. You usually will have creative input, and then you'll see some immediate results. So that's the difference, I think, when you're kind of deciding what you want to do. But I'd encourage the hosted gifted avenue as a viable option, at least in the beginning. And then building relationships with media, kind of similarly, I think I always try and think of it as how can I be helpful? How can I help them? And I think a lot of times what they need is they need quotes, they need data and statistics, they need new angles, fresh things to cover. And for their stories, if they're working on something with you, visuals is always nice to send to them before they ask. I think they appreciate it. There's also the number of times I've gotten emails from people who need a certain image by, in 30 minutes or an hour before their deadline. I think as much as you can anticipate what they need, they really appreciate. So yeah, you can invite them on your press trips. You can send them updates, respond fast when they contact you because they're usually on a deadline. I'd say try not to bug them about when a story comes out because a lot of times they don't know. It's up to their editor. And suggest story angles too. I think that they appreciate that. Even if they don't answer you, maybe they'll save it, and you never know when it could be helpful. In terms of finding reporters and people that are looking for information, these are some like scrappy ways that you could look for them. I think they're still on Twitter, although a lot of people have gotten off Twitter. I think some of them are still on Twitter. Help a Reporter Out is a free email subscription that you get pings like daily if you want, or I think they have weekly options, but that's a good one. LinkedIn, Instagram, there's a lot of journalists that are also like content creators too. So sometimes they might post things on their Instagram if they're looking for help, or if you see that they're traveling to a certain destination. or looking for a certain product and you provide it, you could reach out on Instagram. And then good old fashioned Google search too, like kind of reverse engineering. So if I'm thinking about, okay, I want to find Italian travel writers, maybe I Google like best things to do in Rome, go through the Google searches, and then find some outlets I like, find the writer, try and like Google, find their email. And you can do a lot of sleuthing. Or if you have money and investments, there are obviously tools where you can find this a lot easier. But all that to say, you could do it on your own too if you have the time and a little bit of creativity. And then at lesson 3, the penultimate lesson, I think, is be patient. That's also something I've learned along the way, especially with media and journalists. I'll reach out to a lot of writers, and maybe 1 in 4 will respond to me, and that's fine. Maybe they'll respond to me in 2 months. Maybe they'll respond to me never. But I think I've heard that's normal. And then you can follow up 1 to 2 times, but definitely don't be annoying. It goes back to the relationship piece. You want these people to like you. They want you to think of you in the future when something comes up where you might be relevant. And then if you hosted them, I think follow up about the experience, ask them if they need anything, and then ultimately let them do their job, and kind of wait patiently for a story to come out or for them to deliver the content. So people are busy, they've got a lot of things to do, but I think trusting that, you know, they're interested and they see that you have some goodwill too, that goes a long way. And then lastly, when you do get these wins, these podcast interviews, these media mentions, this content from influencers, you should definitely celebrate them, and recognize that this third-party validation is really powerful for your brand. Not only will it help you reach new audiences, but you can also share it to sort of reinforce your existing audience. So you should definitely share it out, share it on LinkedIn, share it on your Instagram, put it on your website. If you're trying to build a relationship with somebody and you think the topic might be interesting to someone else, send it to them. It's a good way to build motivation with employees, I think, as well, and with partners, for people to see that you've been recognized by other people. So there's just a lot of value in sort of celebrating the wins that you've had. And that's it. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah, out of curiosity, I guess, how many people work in travel? Erin? Okay, 3 of us. Nice. Yeah. Great.
You good for zero travel? Yeah. Talk about being careful about the relationship. There's got to be a 2-way relationship. Have you got any guidance on, I don't know, setting some boundaries, maybe things that have gone wrong that you think, I wouldn't do that again? I wish I'd specified that up front.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think setting expectations up front is definitely really helpful. So yeah, if you're expecting a reel or something to be delivered within 2 weeks, then be like, is that okay with you? I think that's also nice to get input from people too, so you can sort of set your expectations and make sure, does that work for you? And then if you get like a verbal okay or a verbal no, then you can sort of figure that out. But yeah, I think also sort of keeping track, like it goes both ways, right? So if you're, continuously giving to somebody and you're not getting anything in return, then I think at that point it's also fair to say, hey, we're no longer interested, or something like that. But yeah, trying to set those expectations up front, and I think ideally in like writing too, not necessarily in a contract, but if you're like having an email exchange, just so everybody sort of knows, I think has helped in the past. But obviously things happen with like travel, and this is a specific example, but people get sick, they have to cancel, things happen. So again, trying to remember that people are people, but then also recognizing boundaries and holding people accountable as well is, I think, important. Yeah.
Do you see a difference between working in the United States and versus here in Spain? And if so, like, what tips would you give to
Oh.
handle there?
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer either. A lot of my colleagues are American from the US as well. So in that sense, I haven't found the working relationship totally different. And I will say a lot of the creators we work with are from like the States or the UK as well. And I think there's a lot of similarities there. So I don't think I have a good one for that.
So the influencers or content creators that you work with are all rather not Spanish or
Well, they could be, for instance, like an American or an English person or an Irish person or whoever, or a Spanish person living in the city for a long time, or they could be coming from overseas. But at least for us, our audience is primarily in the US, Canada, and Australia. So we tend to work with people who have those audiences. And I think it's because a lot of our tours are in English. So that's also part of it as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So I know, obviously when we're getting press, don't want the journalist is a big thing. But like I've had relationships. That sounds weird. I've been cited. I've been cited in sources and like have like contact information and kind of like a banter with journalists. Is it okay to reach out to them like twice a year and be like, hey, if you're working on anything, in my case, spin travel related, I'm happy to be a source again. Let me know. Is that okay? Or
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you have something new to add, you could probably reach out more too. Yeah, but as long as you have something valuable, if you're doing something new, hey, I think you might be interested in this. I mean, I think I've learned obviously not be annoying, make sure you're adding value, but like kind of have no shame too. But also think about all the emails that you get as well that you maybe don't answer, but maybe is helpful down the line or something. So I feel like I'm not a journalist, but I feel like that's how they sort of see it. It's like, oh, maybe that's interesting, not an opportunity now, but maybe I'll save it for later. So I think whenever you think there's value that you could add, yeah, you should get in touch.
I have a question with regards to the actual content creation. Now, with the dawn of AI, everyone's a podcast, everyone can be an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
As a professional person in an organization, where do you actually, or do you draw the line? And where do you draw the line then? You say, okay, listen, we're reaching out to a content creator. Do you actually say you're not allowed to use AI, or we don't want you to use AI, or you can only use AI for certain things and you can't use AI for certain things? Because my experience recently, looking at other companies, some of them actually explicitly said is, we don't want you using AI for stop. And we find out or dissolve the relationship.
Yeah.
Is that something you experience? Do you care about it? Is that something relevant, especially for the travel and hospitality industry? Where you like you said, you need a lot of content, visuals, images, copy, text. Does that play a role?
Yeah. I feel like it hasn't come up a ton, usually because whatever we're creating or doing, someone has to have experienced the experience at some point. So I don't think there's a ton of room for AI, for example. I mean, a creator could write the caption with AI, or they could write a script with AI, or whatever that may be. I don't really think we mind too much as long as it works for their channel and people seem to like it, for example. It might be like a different story for if you're a blog writer for a company, and then obviously a company is paying you to write blogs, and then they're just generating it with AI. I think that probably across the board, probably being like a freelance writer is a hard time right now, because with AI you can do so much of that. So I can't speak to it specifically, but at least like in the content creator like PR space, it hasn't come up too much. But yeah, it kind of answers your question more or less. But we use AI a lot in terms of like brainstorming and generating ideas and things like that too. So I was actually thinking that could be a good talk as well. And it just continues to evolve and change.
Okay, so I have a question from the other side. I'm a content creator. So sometimes I'm hesitant about reaching out to certain brands that I feel like resonate with me. Like, oh gosh, this would be so great. So what is your take on that? Like, do you welcome those, content creators reaching out, or would you rather be the one reaching out to them, because then you filter who you really want to work with?
No, I say get in touch. We get a lot of inbound requests, and I think it's awesome. When you think about it that way, it also makes that person's job a lot easier too, because you're coming to them, like you're coming with the proposal, with the ideas, with what you're interested in. So I think you should definitely reach out. And I think that brands are really open to working with content creators and want to work with creators. So yeah, you never know what could happen.
I'm also interested in that part, from being content creator. I have a small YouTube channel, and in the last year I started charging for interviews on that channel, but I don't know how much to charge. Basically, I was just like negotiating what I thought. I didn't even read, elsewhere. So I don't know, maybe it's too broad of a question, but what are the levels of, prices for certain collaborations? Maybe you could give certain examples, or a scale.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like that's a hard one.
I'm specifically talking about YouTube, like
Yeah.
long form videos.
Yeah. I don't think I could give a number on that because I haven't worked in that. But yeah, I've seen, at least on the content creator side, like it can run the gamut, like a reel for $250 or a reel for like $10,000. And whether you choose to, invest in that is your company's choice. But I feel like with YouTube, it's probably the same, right? Yeah, I feel like that's a hard one. Maybe you could ask ChatGPT though, because that's what I would do.
Some specific example without proper number, but maybe sometimes we negotiated this specifically in this package, and it was this
Yeah.
range.
No, I don't really know because I do more of the earned side, whereas other people on my team do the paid side. So I don't really feel like I can give you an accurate number. Sorry.
Do you find that like always it's just I see that in my experience being a content creator in Los Angeles versus here, it's a huge difference in pay. So for your question, you're in Spain, it's probably not going to be that high. Just because of your location, seriously, like I've come to find out. Actually, you might have to.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably differs based on if it's like a local company or a local brand, maybe versus something more international. That would be my guess because prices are like lower here, salaries are lower, so I assume that would kind of trickle into maybe that as well. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I work in SEO and I'm worried about backlinks. Is there a polite way of asking for a backlink to your journalist?
Yeah, that's a good one. I will ask. I mean, the worst they can say is no, right? And I think also a reasonable person will understand, like, if you've been cited in a publication, it's nice for the link to go back to you. They might say yes, they might say no. Like in some cases, people have said to us, oh, but we can't link to your website because we have a partnership with Viator or something like that, an affiliate partnership with Viator. So we have to link to it on that website, or I don't know, they might have their reasons, but I think it's worth asking because again, the worst they can say is no. And if they say yes, then you get the backlink. So
no polite way. It's just
It's just yes or no, basically.
yeah, or hey, G, would it be possible to add a link? Like, loved your article. Yeah, pretty please.
Suggestion for someone who gets a lot of spam in my inbox every day from SEO people. Make sure it's relevant to your content.
Yeah.
I had a travel blog. Somebody wanted to post some. I got this one on just pretty much. He wrote me an email about he thought we'd be a great fit because he monitors the stock market. I'm like, have you even looked at my website?
Yeah. I think that's definitely like mass mailing. We've gotten stuff for like dentists. Oh, you talk about food. Like, don't you want to, link to my dentist website? We're like, no. Yeah. So I think also from there, you can kind of apply when I'm reaching out to people, how do I make sure, that it's relevant and makes sense? So in a way, it's almost helpful to be on the receiving end so you can know how to be helpful when you're kind of doing the same thing, but to other people.
And do you think that AI is helpful? Because I'm starting to see this kind of emails asking for whatever, maybe a call or a content piece or a backlink. that they're starting to use AI. Do you think that's somehow helpful?
Like an
to
AI message or like
Yeah,
generated?
So the message that we're sending to the journalist is created by or helped
Hmm.
AI assisted, let's say.
And then it like triggers automatically or something like that, and the follow-ups trigger automatically. Yeah, I've gotten those as well. I mean, there's probably a way where you can make it seem more personal. I think you can tell when it's just like mass and something has been automated. But at the end of the day, if it makes you more effective, I think that's fine. But trying to make it seem personal is probably the challenge, right?
Any more questions?
Okay. Well, thanks.
And now we have the surprise. So.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Can you raise your hand again, please?
Not sure if I want you.
Oh, wow. It's okay.